Chelsea gives up double chance in the finals by their loss to Hastings, a very bad loss for the Seagulls. We'll talk about that on the Footy Show, live from Mount Eliza Football Club tonight for Division 2. Tired coach Aaron Pacey speaks to GameFace prior to a great win against Somerville, their 6th win of the season. They've been one of the big improvers this year. A special guest thanks to Frankston RSL is the Crib Point president, Steve Espenscheid. He has an honest chat to us about the trials and tribulations of being the bottom side of the competition. Somerville president Chris Fawcett hits back at Blackers' comments about their decision to move Andreas Everett on as coach as they still search for a new coach, and they lost, of course, to Tyab last weekend to end a pretty disappointing year for the Eagles. And the big story, though, is Langwarrins. The Kangaroos have got their tails up and they're ready to go. They're in the finals after they thrashed Pearcedale and Hastings had a poor end to the season. We've got a massive Division 2 footy show. Let's get stuck right into it. G'day everyone, my name's Dan Lonigan. We're live from the Mount Eliza Football Club for our Division 2 footy club, our Division 2 football show tonight, and it's wonderful to be here. Welcome again to Chris Holcomb and also to Tony Blackford. Welcome, boys.
Thanks,
Another
Dan.
big weekend of footy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a wonderful weekend of football. And, you know, this week in First Division, every game counts, doesn't it, Holt?
It does. And Second Division, we're finished with all the mucking around. It's time to hook into it. See
Yeah.
who the pretenders are and see who's for real.
Here we are, Dan, at the Mount Eliza rooms. And, you know, they're an old club room. An old mate of mine, Lance Mogford, built these. And he must have built them.
How long ago?
I know Lance.
Yeah, Lancey Mogford built these rooms. And, you know, Mount Eliza's got wonderful facilities with their grounds and their sporting fields and all that. Oh, hang on a minute, Dan. Not again. Here we go, Dan.
Hey, look, I was hoping it would be Andreas Everett. We put a call out to him looking for a comment from Andreas Everett. But it's not. But it's actually an old mate of mine, Phil. So we'll talk to Phil. No, I'll not answer it. He'll
Was
just
it
want to
Phil
talk
or
about
Phyllis?
Collingwood.
Is it
No,
Phyllis?
that's Phil.
No, Phyllis.
This week.
No, not Mum this week. Mum's in good shape too. She's
No
82.
Tinder? No
on
Tinder?
fire. No Tinder this week.
See, we had
No grinder either. What is grinder, by the way?
no idea.
Oh, rubbish.
I've been married for 12 years. I don't
Gee,
know.
we had a bit of fun last week, Dan, didn't we?
We certainly did. Let's talk some footy, boys, because I'm going red again and I'm starting to perspire like 10 men. So we'll concentrate on the footy now. Chelsea have come into the finals out of form. Kooringal have come into the finals out of form.
Yep.
Langwarrins have come into the finals in great form.
Yep.
Can they beat Langwarrins Chelsea the way that Chelsea played last week when they kicked 2-8 to 3 behinds in the first quarter and basically blew a golden opportunity?
I think Langwarrins have got themselves into a really good position. They've got some players back. Norton's been fantastic in the ruck since he's come back. Jesse Murphy's got over his hamstring injury. Gerard Brown at centre half forward. Patterson's playing. So they've got a full list of players to choose from at the moment. I think their reserves have got in as well. And their under-19s. For the club's sake, I think that they've done a wonderful job, Blake and Josh Beard, and you know, their momentum going into the final series is really going to help them to overcome a strong Chelsea side.
I think we've been saying that Kooringal and Chelsea have been sort of treading water for a little while, not really putting teams away.
Well, Kooringal can't score goals, Chris. I mean, they kicked 8-10 last week.
Against Crib Point.
Yeah, we were talking to Glenn and the coach when we were at Langwarrins for the match against Pearcedale, and Glenn, being a Kooringal man, kept lamenting the fact that Dramana, the top team, took Crib Point to the sword last week, winning by well over 150 points, and yet Kooringal battled to kick 10 goals against them. They kicked 8-10. That's been their issue all year, hasn't it?
Yeah, and then they only kicked 4 or 7 goals against Red Hill, 7 against might have been Chelsea, mightn't it?
Yeah, they got the job done that day, but a good effort by Hastings to end the season on a good note. Blake, as you said, last week they wouldn't win another game for the season. There was one game to go, and a month ago you said they wouldn't win another game for the season.
4 weeks ago, Dan, I said to you that they wouldn't win another game. And I was right up until the last quarter, and they got a win.
But you weren't right, Blakers.
No, I know, up until 3/4 time.
You still weren't right though, Blakers.
It was a wonderful win by Hastings.
Yes.
I think that they've had their backs to the wall for a long time. They've got a lot of blokes carrying a lot of injuries, and with what happened at the start of the year, their morale really dropped away, didn't it, Holtz?
It did indeed. And it's going to be interesting seeing the off-season what they do and how the exodus is. We've already seen a couple of teams that are starting to have that walkout after limited success, so it'll be interesting at Hastings. Stay tuned, I reckon.
Can we talk about Tyab? They're one of the feel-good stories
Wonderful story,
the
Dan.
entire competition.
Wonderful.
They've won their 6th game of the season.
Well done.
Now, before the match on Saturday against Somerville, it was great to get down to Yabby country and speak to their coach, Aaron Pacey, who's done a wonderful job with this team. And here's what he had to say about the team's success so far this year. As he said to me before the interview, they'd won 2 of their previous 68 matches going into this year. So they'll be hoping to obviously build on what they've achieved this year. But here's some of what he had to say before the great win against Somerville. They've had their best season for a long time. They've won 5 matches this year, and one of the main reasons why they've had such a good year is their playing coach, Aaron Pacey. He's been good enough to join us on GameFace.
No, we didn't really put any limits on games won. We just said that we wanted to come in and be competitive, because in the past it's not been the case. Really pleased with the progress that the boys have made and how far the club has come, I suppose. As far as our confidence, we've re-signed 35 of the 37 that have played seniors this year, so that's a really positive start for us, and we've already begun talks with some other players to try and fill some more roles that we need to.
Do you feel, Aaron, since you took over as coach, that you've made the club relevant again?
Blowing a bit of wind up me, but it's a hard one. Look, we really did strip it back a little bit and went back to basics and probably got back to the essence of football, and that's just enjoying what you do. I think in the past it may have been too focused on sort of other areas. And
That's terrific, Dan, isn't it?
It is
wonderful.
Wonderful news.
And I think Aaron and the Tyre Football Club is a wonderful story. And for so long, Somerville's beaten up on them, and it was probably great for their club to be able to finally get one back on the Somerville Football Club.
Well, starting on the year, I can imagine if you had said Somerville, Rye, and even after round 4, Somerville, Rye,
Devon
Meadows,
and Pearcedale,
Tyre, all on the same
and
points.
Pearcedale,
Ridiculous.
all on the same amount of points. So they've all had 6 wins, Dan.
Well, it's fantastic for the competition. Exactly what we need. We just need, and we'll talk about Crib Point a little bit later, we just need Crib Point to keep improving. Mind you, their under-19s are in the finals, which is wonderful news. Now, talking of Somerville, their president, Chris Fawcett, also at Tyab on the weekend, hit back at our own Tony Blackford, and we will firstly go to footage of what Black has said last week regarding the coaching fiasco involving Andreas Everett, who'd been sacked, and Everett has said all along, and I've been trying to get in touch with Andreas. I've left a text message, I've left a phone message, I haven't heard back from him just yet.
Well,
trying to get his story as to exactly what happened. He wasn't happy with the way he was treated, but here's what Blake has had to say, and then we'll get the response from Chris Fawcett, who was very angry with you, Blackers, when I spoke to him last week.
He was.
That's correct, Dan. Like, it's been a tough couple of weeks for the club.
They were pretty keen on Nick Jewell, but Rosebud got in ahead of them, so...
It's unfortunate there's people external that haven't helped the situation.
One thing I heard about Everett, he didn't find out until he got a phone call from Simon McAvoy, from the leader. He heard some, he knew that there was some rumblings, but nobody...
The club should have handled that better.
Nobody from the club come up to him and said, we need to sit down and have a chat. He heard directly from Simon.
I definitely want to say that wasn't the case, and I'm really disappointed Blackers has said that. It's made our committee look poor. We've done nothing but be professional. Unfortunately, yes, Andreas is upset. He's got every right to be, but we have gone through a thorough process. So I'm really disappointed that to see those reports about our club and our committee, because I believe that we're doing the right thing by the club, by our supporters and by our members. And then I spoke to him directly in person, and we discussed the situation, and Andreas and the club decided to part ways. And Andreas, to his credit, is going to stay on and see out the season and come to presentation night. And as far as we're concerned, he'll always be part of the Somerville community. He was a junior at the club. He's a great guy. And unfortunately, coaching hasn't worked out this year for him or the club.
Because he would love to be around the club, but he feels that they've handled it inappropriately.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, Blackers, you still stand by that, though, don't you? Chris has got stuck into you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. And he's got his right to reply. But my understanding is what I said last week is exactly what I'd heard. And Dan, they didn't speak to him, did they? They were trying to speak to him, but
he didn't want to speak to them, is what they've said.
That's right. Two sources. Yeah.
Well, the word I got too was that there was a text message sent by Andreas Everett to Chris Fawcett saying, I believe you've appointed Nick Jewell as coach. Thanks very much for telling me. And then Chris said, I'm happy to drive all the way up from Somerville to your place at Yarraville and have a chat to you and have a coffee with you and explain what's going on. We haven't appointed Nick Jewell yet, but we are making a decision about the coaching. We feel it would be best if we don't have you as coach, but we need to sit down and talk. He said, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. And when they tried to have him come in, Chris has said, and talk when he was out on the track, he said he didn't want to do that. So, as I say, we're trying to get hold of him. Hopefully we'll get hold of him in the next week or so and he can put his side of the story forward.
I wouldn't be interested in that either.
Neither would I.
Someone is
Chris.
a club that I've invested time in to go behind and back and speak to someone without even indicating first, I'd tell them to jam it as well.
So what they should have done 6 weeks out, before they spoken to Nick Jewell, they should have done a review and had those panellists in a review, got Andreas in and said, mate, where are you at for next year? This is what we think as a group. And then that wouldn't have happened. And Everett wouldn't have been feeling the way he was.
Chris also said that they tried to get Andreas some support. They had, I think, Bevan Malloy as an assistant coach last year, but he's obviously got a child who's very severely disabled, and we wish him all the best there. And he had to pull away from that responsibility this year. And they asked him, do you want someone else? We can get you someone else. And Andreas said, no, I'm okay. And there seemed to be a situation with the club that Andreas was a bit too close to the players, a bit more like a mate than a coach, and it didn't quite work out. But as I say, we're hoping we can get Andreas on and he can put his view
across
regarding what happened and whether that actually happened when he was coach of the club. But what can be said is they missed him when he was injured in the second half of the year after that great win against Rye, and they struggled on the field. They finished games well, but they gave teams too much of a good start.
Yeah, you're spot on, Dan.
Thanks, Andreas, for joining us. It's obviously been a tough time in your last few weeks as coach of Somerville. How disappointed are you with the way it all ended up?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Look, obviously it's disappointing. I've played 150 junior games and, come back to try and do the right thing in terms of, putting the club back to winning some games and playing in premierships, and that's all you want to do. But unfortunately, circumstances have it. I'm not the man for the job, and you just got to move on and go from there, I suppose.
I heard that you'd heard that the club had gone behind your back and had almost appointed a new coach. Is that correct?
I wouldn't go as far as saying a new coach. Things fell down between myself and the committee quite early on in the year. The communication wasn't there, and that's the main thing. And I had a close friend message me that leader newspaper article, and I had some questions for them, and they sort of, this is on the Monday, and then the Tuesday it all sort of unfolded that, I think it was on both parties when they for some reason couldn't have trusted me, and I couldn't have trusted the committee from early on when they sacked the twos coach without informing me that they were going to do so. So with all that said and done, it was a disappointing season also, which made the decision for them a lot easier, I would have thought.
So you'd like to have another crack as a playing coach somewhere, Andreas?
Ideally that's the case, but also I'm quite happy just to sit back and enjoy my last few years of footy.
Good on you, Andre. Really appreciate you chatting with us. Congratulations on what you achieved at Somerville, and let's hope you're back playing good footy or coaching next year. Thanks for joining us in GameFace.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
Now, Blackers, you've got some other news for us about Somerville again. Some bad news for Somerville, some good news for Langwarrins, and they're still in the finals.
Yeah, they're in, and they've had some wonderful news through the week. Is that Tim McGuinness, the Somerville an ex-North Melbourne player, has committed to play for Langwarrins Football Club next year, which is a remarkable effort, and we've just come off the end of the season, Dan.
It's incredible, isn't it, that they've managed to pick him up. That'll certainly help their cause next
wonderful.
year. And it won't help Somerville's cause, though, will it?
No, and with that, and I'm not saying, but I'm sure that there might be other people that might want to follow Tim as well.
It sounds like it. There was always going to be a bit of discourse with the playing group with how it went. If he was close with the playing group, then the club must have known that there was going to be some fallout if that occurred. And probably stay tuned to that one as well.
Yeah.
The big story though, Langwarrin, the Kangaroos' tails are up and they're ready for finals action. They dished out a 107-point thrashing of Pearcedale. They were 80 points up at half-time, so the game was in the bag. It was a big day for the footy club. They had the 1993 Premiership reunion.
1 point.
Most of them were there. They had to be carried by 1 point. You're right, Blackers. Most of the players were there. The Gage brothers, Stuart Barth, Robert Kirk, Glenn Nichols.
Robbie Jackson.
Can I tell you a story about Glenn Nichols?
Yeah.
He was wearing his jumper,
was
which he wore 25 years ago. This is what he said anyway. I'm hearing that may not be right, but look, let's go ahead with the story anyway. And apparently the jumper had not been washed. And of course it was soaked in beer, had not been washed since they won the premiership back in 1993.
25 years
a lot
ago.
of mayo going around that day.
Oh, I think there might have been. And we also had Daryl Patterson on, whose son Shane has played a big part in Langwarrin.
And we had Shane on the other week.
Yeah, we did. Excellent. So let's have a look at, well, obviously it was magnificent to speak to some of these guys about what was a big, big day. I mean, as you said, I think that they've embellished a lot of the stories. They were 23 points down at three-quarter time. Big Leith Gage, he being the coach of the team, he told us how good his speech was. And I'm sure by the end of the night he would have said it's the greatest speech he's ever produced in the history of football. And then, of course, we were lucky enough to get into the huddle, three-quarter time. Josh Beer was a bit disappointed with his team's performance at the stoppage in the third quarter, even though they had the game won. The first thing he said was, we've got the game won, boys. There's no way they can come back now. Their season's cooked. We've got to finish off on a good note. And that was absolutely fantastic.
They did that well, Dan, didn't they?
They did. And then we got in the rooms, and the song was as good a version of a theme song I've ever heard in all my time involved in footy. And they had the premiership players were there, and the players were there knowing they're playing in the finals. And then after that, GameFace was lucky enough to speak in the showers, before they had a shower, mind you, to Blake McCormack, to Big Red Matthew Norton, and also to Jesse Murphy, who has won the goal kicking with 72 goals.
Yeah. Kicked 7 on the weekend, Dan.
He did. We're in the change rooms after Langwarrin have got themselves into the finals. A big win over Pearcedale. They're pretty happy outside. And
it's amazing. It's overwhelmed, really. Like, we knew we had a good shot today. Like, if we played our best brand of footy and to get the job done, I'm just so proud of the group. We set ourselves a goal to play finals when Josh and I arrived to the club, and our dreams are now starting to become reality. So yeah, I'm pumped.
Big Red's here. He's been absolutely outstanding. He's got ice around his knee. You'll be right next week, won't you, mate?
Yeah, definitely. Make sure I'll be right for next week. That's what it's all about now. So make sure we're hitting the track Tuesday and get focused and ready for Sunday now. So big game.
How do you feel about it?
Huge. It's unreal. It's been a while since we played finals here, so the build-up's taken a long time to get there. But now that we're there, I think we've got the right team and we can cause some damage in there. So.
And your own season, as someone had said at the start of the year, kicked nearly 70 goals. What would you have said to them?
Oh, take that. The boys have been brilliant this year. Helped me out playing deep, the coaches and that. So, it's only looking forward to next week rather than the individual accolades, that's for sure.
Langwarrin takes on Chelsea at Rye next Sunday, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later, but they're in outstanding form, aren't they? And they've done what they've had to do. They've won their last 2 matches to get in the finals, and I think, Chris, it has a lot to do with you, so congratulations.
Well, Hulks all along has said that they've potentially got a really good squad, but they haven't been able to get the most out of it, and Hulks, they've been able to do that in the second half of the year. I think that they've either won 6 out of 9 or 7 out of 9.
7 out of 9, and I said, at the start of the year when I was analysing the lists and going through, I would have taken the Langwarrin job ahead of the Chelsea job. I liked the Langwarrin list better than what the Chelsea one was.
Yeah.
They're just at different points of the ladder. So that's flipped, and now they're coming hard, and I think that's where they should be. So I think it's justified.
Oh, that's right. And
Are they coming too late though? I mean, have
No,
they
not at
peaked a
all.
bit too early or peaking at the right
They've got a
time?
lot of work to do to get the other two.
Yeah.
They can't make a mistake.
Because we've spoken about Kooringal and Chelsea, how their form over the second half of the year has dived. Langwarrins on the increase. Dramana's been there all year, and so has Red Hill. I think that those three sides are the three form sides.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I ask too about Kooringal? We'll give tips a bit later. They've got all three teams playing in the qualifying final.
Yep.
It looked like, when we were speaking to the guys at Crib Point, they said, I reckon we'll have our senior team in the elimination final at Ryan Sunday, and we'll have our under-19s and reserves in the qualifying final on Saturday, which makes it for a big weekend and a little bit of a disruption for us. But to have them all together, it's almost like a home and away game for them. That's I would have thought an ideal sort of preparation.
Yeah, it's a wonderful preparation in that. But like I've said for the last month, Dan, is that I feel like Kooringal will be taking in blokes that are underdone, and that's going to be the biggest thing that Dunny has to do. Holtz this week is make sure that he picks his fittest side and probably not his best side on paper.
The thing that worries me about it is that it's the way they're playing. You can't turn that around in a week. You can't go out on the track and say, hey, I'll do this, and then everyone jumps on board and they do it. And
They're not going to be able to kick enough goals against Red Hill.
That's Langwarrins themselves, you've got Murphy and Brown who are tearing it up at the moment, or they kick 12 between them on the weekend. They're kicking 20 goals.
Well, Murphy's averaging
Kooringal
4
can't
a
do
game.
that. Kooringal can't do it.
He kicked 7-6. He could have kicked 10 or 11 on the weekend, Murphy. Won the goal kicking by
I think
11
Farrelly might have played in the twos on the weekend. Goodall didn't play. They're their two big ruckmen that they need to bring in. I think on the weekend it's going to be a bit windy again, and there's going to be rain around. At the Somerville ground, that would probably suit Kooringal, just their bigger, stronger bodies. And if it was on a bigger open ground, Red Hill would be able to exploit them with their leg speed and their skills. But in that tighter ground at Somerville, it might keep Kooringal in the game for a lot longer than we think.
Well, we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But up next, we're going to be speaking to our special guest. And it was great to catch up with him on Saturday, doing a wonderful job for the Crib Point Football Club. And that, of course, is Steve Espenscheid, thanks to Frankston RSL, right here at Mount Eliza for the Division 2 GameFace Footy Show.
Frankston RSL, Frankston's function and restaurant specialist.
Looking at the Division 2 goal-kicking table at the end of the home and away season for 2018, and Jesse Murphy of Langwarrins been in front all year and has won the goal-kicking award. He's won by 11, a big bag in their huge win over Pearcedale to get ready for finals for the Kangaroos. He kicked 7 and he finished with 72. Curtis Bywater of Chelsea kicked 1 to be second on 61, 1 goal ahead of Michael Theodoriadis of Devon Meadows. He also only kicked 1 in their loss and he finished with 60. Ethan Johnston of Dramana, 3 to go to 51. And on a fine end of the season for the consistent Jake Anderson of Tired, he also kicked 3, he finished with 46. In the reserves, Scott Sterling won the reserves goal kicking by 20 goals. He booted 3 from Ryan the weekend to go to 51. Richard Mathers of Kooringal, none to remain on 31. Luke Clark of Chelsea, none to remain on 28. And Craig Hunter of Devon Meadows, 1 to move to 23. In the under-19, Sanford Logan of Red Hill won easily. None on the weekend though. He remained on 63, 12 ahead of the rest of the field. Dylan Allen of Rye ended the season on a great note with 5 to move to 51. Nathan Allen of Langwarrin, 2 to go to 38. Anthony Beale of Kooringal, none on 37. And his Kooringal teammate Jay Treat, 1 to finish on 36.
Pencon Garden Supplies and Mini Mix Concrete is a family-owned business that has served the Mornington Peninsula magnificently for more than 50 years. For all your garden and building supplies, concrete, soil, sand and mulch, visit Bart and the team at 58 Peninsula Avenue Rye or call 5985 2252 or 5985 2998.
In the Best Players Award for the second division, great news for Rye despite their poor season in the seniors. Tyrone Head has won the Seniors Best Players Award, picking up 5 votes on the weekend to finish on 53, 5 ahead of Sam Gertz of Dramana. He picked up 3 votes in their big win to finish on 48. Terry Wheeler of Dramana, no votes, remains on 47. Brendan Doyle of Tyre, 4 votes in their 6th win of the season for the Yabbies, and he finishes on 46. And Michael Burke of Coringal, the 300-game veteran, he didn't get any votes on the weekend for the Bulls, and he stays on 44. In the reserves, Scott Sterling of Rye has won that award, so back-to-back wins for Rye seniors and reserves in the Best Players Award. 1 vote to finish on 50, 2 ahead of James Longley of Langwarrins, no votes to remain on 48. Callum Barnes of Somervilles secured 2 votes, he goes to 47. Matt Mitchell of Chelsea, 6 votes, finishes on 44. Kane Stratton of Hastings remains on 41. In the under-19s, Will Hose of Tyab, 5 votes to finish on 73. Tristan Giuliano, Chelsea, 9 votes behind him. He did lead this competition for a large portion of the year, no votes. He finishes on 64. Caleb Watkins of Hastings, 6 votes to finish on 60. Jack Moroney of Somerville, 3 votes, and he's 54 votes at the end of the season. And Nathan McLean of Devon Meadows, no votes on the weekend, remains on 51. Welcome back to the GameFace Footy Show, 2nd Division. We're live tonight at the Mount Eliza Football Club. And a special guest, thanks to the Frankston RSL. It was wonderful to be down there. They were having a past players' day, as was Langwarrin. We mentioned a little bit earlier on our football show, for Crib Point, their last home and away match of the season. They went down to Coringal, but they certainly battled hard. It's good that their under-19s are in the finals, but they had a past players' day for many of their past premiership teams, as they're also launching a book on the Crib Point Sporting Club, their cricket club, their netball club, who have had outstanding success since they've been in the competition over the last 10 years. They've dominated, and also the football club, and they won premierships in 57, 58. They described the 58 team as an immortal premiership team, absolutely dominating, and 3 in a row in 66, 67 and 68. So it was wonderful to meet a lot of the stars of those premiership teams.
Did you see any of those sides, Tone?
Yeah,
you would have seen all of them, wouldn't you?
58 is when I started, yeah.
Okay, very good.
And they were a powerful side at the time, Dan.
You look good for 70, Blackers, with all that curly hair.
Yeah.
Going
hey,
well,
Dan, what about the turn up there last week? Was it good or...?
Excellent. There were a lot of past players there. It was wonderful to see
Which is great
so many
because
of them there.
for a club that's really struggled to finish off on a good note at the end of the year, and they were really competitive last week against Coringal.
They were. They did a great job. I mean, Coringal, I didn't think played very well, but I thought Crib Point did a terrific job. And we spoke to, thanks to the Frankston RSL, the Crib Point president. As he said, he's one of these guys, along with the vice president, Mark Lawton, who's come in from outside the football club to add his football intellect, and he believes it's certainly helping the football club. It's great that they've got a lot of wonderful people there. He talked a lot about the fact they need more volunteers, but it was great to get so much time with Steve. But Steve Espenshire is our special guest, thanks to the Frankston RSL, and here's what he had to say when we spoke to him last week. The President Steve Espenshire has been good enough to invite GameFace down to the footy club today. And Steve, thanks for having us. It's been a tough year for the seniors, but I suppose shining light, or the silver lining, has been the under-19s. You'll be playing finals, which is great news.
Oh, definitely. Look, our under-19s, 70% of the side are bottom age, probably another 20% are bottom age. And I think you might have seen out today playing against bigger bodies and still in the wet and made a great account of themselves. So definitely, there's silver lining in everything, Dan.
What's been the biggest challenge for the senior team this year?
I suppose the biggest challenge is being the transition to a new game plan. You know, we've got a lot of young kids in the seniors as well. I think Dramana, who's sitting top of the ladder, played a lot of seniors 3 or 4 years ago, and they're starting to see the benefits now, and we've basically taken the same tack. You know, we know we're going to cop a couple of hidings. Oh, look, last week was the only real hiding we've copped. We've had winnable games up until then. I have this debate with lots of people, what's the measurement of success? You know, if we simply go by grand finals, we know that's a very transient thing, don't we? Yeah. How many clubs win grand finals? But if we talk community engagement, we talk about kids being involved, you know, there are other various measures of success, and they're the things that sustain clubs. Otherwise, we'd all be out of business, wouldn't we, if we were just measuring it by grand finals? So, you know, we're looking at what makes us click. We're looking to more the strategic direction of the club, and, you know, that might be 3-4 years down the track.
GameFace Footy Show, 2nd Division, live from the Mount Eliza Football Club. Now, we won't have Team of the Week this week, Blackers, so I'm disappointed about that.
No.
I'd love to hear all the criticism that you get, thanks to Facebook.
I was pretty, Dan, you were pretty spot on with it with my team last week. I thought that I got it right. It was a very good team.
It only took 9 weeks.
It took, but we've done well together, Dan. Hey, Dan, what about Crib Point? Have they stuck with the same coach for next year, or what was the talk there?
They said that he is still the man for the job at this stage. There had been some talk that
he has to commute a fair way, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, and it's his first year as a senior coach, but they seemed happy enough, on the record anyway, publicly, to say that Nathan Johns will be staying as senior coach next year and for his third year of his contract. But of course, as we know in football, things do change, and I mean, if they have another year,
I believe they do,
struggle,
Dan.
They do. If you think you've got a coaching job, as you would know, Blake,
you just never know
than most. And can I also, we'll talk more about that a little bit later. I've heard a rumour about you regarding the previous coaching job, but we'll wait till a little bit later to talk about that.
Okay. You're talking about another one?
Another coaching job,
Sorry.
from another division. Right. Now, Team of the Year, we're not having Team of the Week this week because the home and away season's over.
Team of the Year.
But your Team of the Year, Blackers, is going to be announced for second division at the Grand Final Footy Show.
Yes.
And we're going down to one of my favourite breweries where I've been once before, and fair dinkum.
Well, Dan,
I was like the Leyland brothers. I travelled all around Australia, Blackers, to get there that day. I had no idea where I was heading. You went to the
maze. You went to the maze. You went to the strawberry farm.
I went past the National Golf Club.
You went to the golf club.
Past, Cape Schanck. Yep. I nearly made my way to Flinders. I nearly made my way to Melbourne.
Well, you were at
Flinders. On Bendigo, and then I drove all the way back. And I was about 3 hours late, and of course I got down there and thought, how good is this?
Lucky you've got the coach now, because ever since the coach has come on board, you haven't missed a beat, Dan.
No, he does all the driving, I do all the sleeping, and we go well. It's live from the St Andrews Brewery, Wednesday the 5th of September from 7:30. Book your tickets now, free entry. Last year we were booked out, so make sure you book. And of course, that particular brewery owned by a number of well-known racing personalities.
Identities.
Of course, down the road was the Lee Friedman venue for many years. Yeah, it's magnificent down there, and a lot of the areas where you can sit and have a beer are named after champion racehorses that Lee Friedman trained over the years.
Beautiful.
Including Mackay Diva. Apparently it's booked out every single weekend.
Every weekend, no, it's great.
Now, Blackers,
nominations.
We need 3 nominations for Coach of the Year from you.
Okay.
What do you reckon
for
Division 2?
From the top, you can't go past Ricky Johnson. You know, he's 17-1. He
done everything right, hasn't he?
Done everything right.
Gone out on a limb there, mate.
Oh, that was a big one.
Yeah.
But number two is, I think, is a real feel-good story. Aaron Pacey from the Tyre Football Club.
I like that. Good.
He's had an outstanding year to take a club that in 5 years had only won 2 games. He's won 6 games in his first year at the club. He's been in multiple other games against Hastings and Rye.
And Dramana, I think they lost by 11 points, so very good that day.
So I think that he's done a wonderful job. And the third one will be Jamie Molo from the Red Hill Football Club. They will be the top 3.
The second half of the year has been perfect, bar the second half against Dramana.
Has he improved on last year?
Well, he obviously has.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Do you think you left them in a good spot?
Oh, well, you'd have to ask people at the club.
No,
for
I'm
that,
asking
Dan.
you, Blackers. I'm not asking.
But
we're hoping to go to the. Well, what we're doing next week is the 3 of us will be heading down to Red Hill. Should Chelsea not get over the line against Langwarrins next week, but should Chelsea get over the line against Langwarrins, we'll be doing the show from Chelsea.
Yeah,
but, other than that, we're heading down to Red Hill next week, so it'll be great to have the 3 of us going down to Red Hill next week.
They've got a very young side, so obviously you did a lot of work with the young guys, mate.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about what I did at the club, but they.
Go on.
No, it's not for me to say. You can talk to somebody at the club.
Well, you got them into the finals, didn't you?
4 years in a row, Dan.
Well, it's a great effort, Blackers. You should be very happy with yourself. Now, let's look at the tips for the first weekend of the finals. We'll start with the seniors qualifying and elimination finals. The qualifying final in the seniors is Red Hill against Coringal, being played at Somervilles on Saturday. You'd have to say Red Hill are red hot favourites.
Correct. Yeah, Red Hill. I love Red Hill at the moment. They're those 2 sides up top, like we spoke about before. Langwarrins in form, but the other 2 are a bit scratchy. They can turn it around because they've got the list to be able to do it. But at the moment, on form, Red Hill will.
And Red Hill's first quarter last week against Devon Meadows, they kicked 12 unanswered goals, Dan. Right, and what they did was set the game up in the first quarter, blew Devon Meadows out of the water. Their season was gone at quarter time, you know. So
and then sort of put the cue in the rack after that, didn't they?
Well, not really. I mean, they dominated that. They
cruised to the line.
They did what they had to do, and they did it in the first quarter, and cut the belief out of Devon Meadows. Yeah. What Red Hill are able to do, they are able to kick multiple scores and big scores. They've got goal kicking power in Holmes, Irving, Sean Marchetti, Jono Ross.
Karingal doesn't have that.
Matt Stanley is a really good goal kicker, but my understanding is that Matt has come back from a shoulder injury as well. They don't have the goal kicking power, but if Farrelly and Goodall play, that means that one of those might be forced to play deep, which will help stretch the Red Hill back line. It forces them to put a big bloke on it, and if they can bring the ball to ground, then things might change a little bit. But Hulk said it before, it's hard to change the form that they're in at the moment and go on and kick big scores. It's going to be windy, it's going to be wet, so that's going to play into Karingal's hands more than it will Red Hill's, but I think that the skillfulness of Red Hill will outshine Karingal on the day.
Yep. In the reserves, Dramana against Karingal. Karingal have had a terrific year to be in a qualifying final in all three grades. It must be very happy about that, but Dramana playing pretty good footy in the reserves as well, indicating how strong they are.
Yeah, and there'll be a couple of guys that could be on the verge or the fringe, Hulks, would you say?
Coming back from injury, then they might need another game through that they'll play through, so they'll have a pick from there.
So it's a good position for Dramana to be in.
Very good.
I think that Dramana's form has been really good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Karingal against Rye in the under-19s. Rye finished the season very well to qualify for the qualifying final, but Karingal probably the second best team in the under-19s. I think they're playing for a grand final spot, all these teams up against, of course,
Red Hill
have just thrashed everyone.
Very good, but just on Rye...
They would have a lot of guys back from senior football, Dan.
Yep.
A lot of those young kids would be... played a lot of senior football throughout the year.
Yeah.
I think what might have happened in the last 4 or 5 weeks is that Rye would have pushed them all back to 19s.
Is that what Maury told you? Is that what he's...
No, he didn't tell me anything, old Maury. But that's what I would think, because their form in the seniors has really dropped away.
Yeah.
So Karingal has certainly been the second best side all year, so they deserve to challenge that. So just one thing on the under-19s.
Yep.
2 weeks ago, Red Hill in the under-19s played Hastings, who had about 14 or 15 players. Last week, Devon Meadows forfeited, and this week they have a bye. So they
haven't played much footy.
Well, they haven't played a lot of football in that last month, Dan. So
that
I think
be a real concern.
Well, especially
when they play their second semi.
That's right.
I still think they're good enough.
No. They've been wonderful all year.
We'll talk more about Red Hill next week in the under-19 second semi. Now the elimination final in the seniors, Chelsea and Langwarrin.
Yeah.
Chelsea just up and down, aren't they? Like Karingal, but I mean they've been better against the better sides and struggled against the teams outside the top 5, haven't they? Which is they might be able to fire up for Langwarrin and be too good. I would have thought they've got the talent to beat Langwarrin, but you just don't know which Chelsea's going to turn up, Chris.
100%. 2 months ago, you would have said Chelsea, if Langy managed to scrape in, would belt Langwarrin.
Yeah.
The form over the last couple of months has just turned completely on its head, and Langwarrin has really come in hard.
Remember that Langy played Chelsea at Langy, and Langy got over the line in one of the last kicks of the day.
1 point,
wasn't it?
Yeah, very early in the season.
It was
around the halfway mark of the season.
Yeah, it was the turning point of the Langy boys' season.
Yeah.
And I think Norton has been exceptional for him since he's come back, because he is a good ruckman, and I don't think that Chelsea will have the dominant ruckman like that Langwarrin will have. I think Langwarrin's form has been really good, and I'm going for Langy.
Yeah, I am too. I think they can get the job done at Rye. It should be a terrific match. Chelsea and Langwarrin again in the reserves. Langwarrin have done well to finish top 3. Chelsea have been very good in the reserves all year. I think Chelsea just might have a little bit too much experience for Langwarrin.
Yeah, Langy's just really scraped in the twos. I think they've had a bit of inconsistency, and that comes with senior blokes coming in and out of the side. Chelsea probably on form. They beat Hastings, who were on top of the ladder last week, to make sure that they got into the finals.
And Crib Point and Somerville in the under-19s. Wonderful to see Crib Point there, and I really want them to do well, and hopefully they can keep a lot of those young boys and they can start playing some senior football, and they can keep filtering in boys from the Balnarring junior football program, which is a very successful one that Mark Lawton's been involved in, now the Vice President of the Crib Point Football Club. And they take on Somerville. Good to see those two teams have teams in the finals after difficult years in the seniors, but I think Crib Point can win. They've been pretty good all year.
Yeah, Somerville have always had strong juniors.
Wonderful.
That hasn't been their problem.
No.
And Cribby have always had a strong culture down there. Yeah, that'll be a good game, but I'll lean toward Cribby, I reckon, mate.
Yeah, I think so.
I think Summy, Dan, they have been the most exceptional under-19 side or under-18 side for probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't clicked, those guys, whether they've been really good under-19 players and haven't been able to take that next step. But they might be in the same boat as Rye. Some of those kids might have gone back to play under-19 football, and I think that Summy might win that.
Should be a fascinating weekend of football in Division 2, the first weekend of the finals, and we'll have all the action for you on GameFace over the weekend, all live scores, and then of course we'll have the footy show next week. If Chelsea win, it'll be at Chelsea. If Chelsea don't win, it'll be at Red Hill. We'll be playing in either a first semi-final or a second semi-final, and it'll be great to join you next week for the second division footy show for GameFace. May your team win, and we'll catch you then. Both finals in Division 2 will be broadcast by RPP. You can also watch them on the GameFace app. The qualifying final being played on Saturday between Red Hill and Coringal, and the elimination final on Sunday between Chelsea and Langwarrins at Rye.